The conference room smelled like expensive cologne and bad decisions. That's what I remember most about the moment Derek Calloway looked me dead in the eye and said, "Effective immediately. We're terminating your position as Vice President of Engineering. I'm James Whitfield, 54 years old, and I'd just been fired in a room full of people who couldn't spell firmware if you spotted them the first 6 letters. Nobody moved. 14 executives sitting around a mahogany table, and you could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Derek didn't blink, just sat there in his tailored suit with his hands folded like he was closing a real estate deal instead of ending someone's career. To him, I wasn't the guy who'd spent 11 years building Orion Defense Systems' entire autonomous drone navigation platform from the ground up. I was a line item he could cut to make his quarterly numbers look pretty for the board. I felt my jaw tighten. My hands wanted to grip the armrests, flip the table, tell him exactly what I thought of his leadership by spreadsheet management style. But I didn't. I stood up, straightened my tie, looked at every single face in that room, and said one word: appreciated. A few people shifted. Someone coughed. They probably thought I'd lost my mind, or maybe they thought I was broken. But none of them had any idea what that word actually meant. See, Derek Calloway was 38, Wharton MBA. His uncle, Richard Calloway, sat on Orion's board of directors and ran Pinnacle Capital, the private equity firm that had led our Series B funding back in 2019. Derek had never designed a circuit board, never debugged a navigation algorithm, never pulled an all-nighter trying to get a drone to hold stable in 40-knot crosswinds. But he sure loved words like operational efficiency and margin optimization. The guy talked about defense technology like he was selling timeshares. Me? I'd been in aerospace and defense engineering for 27 years. Started at Raytheon in 1997 as a junior systems engineer, right when GPS-guided munitions were changing everything. Spent 6 years there learning how satellite communication systems actually work. Not from textbooks, but from building them with my hands and testing them in desert heat at White Sands. Then I moved to Northrop Grumman during the early drone boom. Was part of the team that developed some of the first autonomous flight control systems for military UAVs. Watched 3 companies around me fold during defense budget cuts in 2013. Half my colleagues got laid off on a Tuesday and were escorted out by Friday. That's when I learned the most important lesson of my career. If you build something valuable, make sure you own the keys. When I joined Orion Defense Systems in 2013, they were a scrappy startup with 12 engineers and a dream of building autonomous drones for commercial infrastructure inspection. Power lines, oil pipelines, cell towers, places too dangerous or expensive to send humans. I built their entire navigation platform from scratch. The PathGuard system, proprietary algorithms that could fly a drone through a forest of power lines in zero visibility, mapping everything in real time with millimeter precision. By 2020, we had contracts with 17 utility companies across North America. By 2023, we were managing autonomous inspections for 60% of the major pipeline operators in the Gulf Coast region. But here's what Derek never understood, and what most of those executives in that room never bothered to learn. 3 years ago, when Orion was hemorrhaging cash during a funding drought and the board was talking about selling off divisions, I'd done something smart. Real smart. I'd restructured the core PathGuard patents into a separate entity, Whitfield Autonomous Technologies, my company, completely legal, fully documented, approved unanimously by the same board that had just watched Derek hand me a termination letter. The licensing agreement was structured so Orion could use the technology indefinitely, as long as the original architect maintained an active role in the company. If that relationship was severed without a proper 12-month transition protocol, all licensing reverted to my entity within 72 hours. My attorney had buried that clause in Section 9.4.3 of the IP licensing framework. Every board member had signed it, including Derek's uncle. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a 38-year-old MBA tried to erase me, and how I walked away with $750 million. The PathGuard system wasn't just software running on a laptop. We're talking about 11 years of navigation algorithms, LiDAR processing engines, collision avoidance systems, and machine learning models trained on over 2 million hours of autonomous flight data. The kind of technology that could fly a 40-pound drone through a narrow canyon at 60 miles per hour, dodging rock formations and wind shear in real time, while simultaneously generating 3D terrain maps accurate to within 3 millimeters. When I started building it, commercial drone technology was still basically remote-controlled toys with cameras strapped to them. Nobody was doing true autonomous navigation in unstructured environments. The FAA didn't even have regulations for it yet. I designed PathGuard to be modular, interchangeable sensor packages, adaptive flight controllers, cloud-based mission planning that could coordinate hundreds of drones simultaneously. The breakthrough was our predictive navigation engine. Instead of reacting to obstacles, our drones anticipated them. Wind pattern analysis, structural degradation, modeling, electromagnetic interference mapping, all processed in milliseconds. Think of it like giving a drone the instincts of a bird that's been flying the same route for 1,000 years. By the time Derek showed up, PathGuard was generating 80% of Orion's revenue. We had contracts worth over $400 million annually, with clients ranging from Duke Energy to TransCanada Pipeline to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Derek had joined the board 14 months before my termination. Uncle Richard's firm had led a recapitalization round, and suddenly Derek was appointed COO with a mandate to streamline operations and accelerate profitability. Translation: cut costs, boost margins, make the numbers look good for a potential IPO. He'd never managed engineers before. His last job was running a logistics company that moved furniture, but he spoke fluent MBA, return on invested capital, EBITDA margins, headcount rationalization. The board ate it up because he was telling them what they wanted to hear. 6 months in, Derek started cutting my engineering budget, canceled our advanced sensor R&D program, laid off 8 experienced drone engineers and replaced them with contractors billing at half the rate. Told the board that engineering was overstaffed relative to revenue generation, I argued. Got shut down, argued again, got labeled resistant to organizational change. Story of every engineer who's ever worked under someone who doesn't understand what they're managing. After that conference room execution, I sat in my truck in the parking lot for 20 minutes. Engine off, windows down, October air cooling my face. My phone started vibrating like a slot machine paying out. Marcus Rivera, my lead navigation engineer, texted first. "Boss, what the hell? Security just locked your office. Are they serious?" Marcus was 31, Caltech PhD in robotics, best autonomous systems engineer I'd ever worked with. I'd recruited him straight out of his doctoral program and spent 4 years teaching him things no university covers. How to make algorithms work in the real world where wind doesn't follow equations and GPS signals bounce off canyon walls. Then came Diana Okafor from operations. "James, this is madness. Half the team is in shock. Nobody knows what's happening with the Chevron deployment next week." Diana had been our director of operations for 6 years. Former Air Force, 2 tours managing drone operations in Afghanistan. She understood better than anyone how critical our technology was to the companies depending on it. My older brother Paul called from his ranch in Wyoming. "Jimmy, what happened? I just got a call from your wife." Paul was 58, retired Army colonel, now running a small defense consulting firm. He'd spent 30 years in military intelligence and had seen more corporate backstabbing than most people see in movies. "This doesn't pass the smell test, brother. Something's off." The thing that ate at me wasn't losing my job. I'd survived layoffs before. It was the texts from my team. These were brilliant engineers, people who'd trusted me, followed my lead, built something extraordinary together, and now they were scared. Marcus wasn't just an employee to me. He was the future of autonomous navigation, carrying forward everything I'd learned over 3 decades. Watching him panic felt like watching my own son get blindsided by something he didn't deserve. I drove home to my wife, Rachel. We'd been married 26 years, met when I was doing contract work for Lockheed Martin, and she was finishing her law degree at Georgetown. She'd watched me navigate 4 career transitions, seen me lose positions, and rebuild from scratch each time. She handed me a bourbon and said what she always says: "They just handed you the best opportunity you've had in years, James. They're just too stupid to know it yet." She was right. But even she didn't know how right until 3 days later. Derek had scheduled a critical demonstration for Thursday, 3 days after my termination. The Department of Energy had a $200 million contract on the table for autonomous pipeline inspection across the entire Gulf Coast region. Biggest deal in Orion's history. Representatives from the DOE, Chevron, ExxonMobil, and 3 different defense contractors were flying in to watch PathGuard perform a live autonomous inspection of a simulated pipeline corridor at our testing facility in Galveston. I wasn't there, obviously, but Marcus texted me real-time updates from the control room. 9:08 a.m., demo starting. Derek's wearing his power suit. DOE people look serious. Chevron brought their whole executive team. 9:23 a.m. First drone launched. Following pre-programmed route, looking good so far. 9:31 a.m. Something's wrong. Navigation system just froze mid-flight. Drone went into emergency hover mode. Everyone's staring at screens. 9:38 a.m. Second drone won't even initialize. Control interface showing license authorization required contact Whitfield Autonomous Technologies. Derek just went pale. 9:45 a.m. Due representative asking if Orion actually owns the technology they're demonstrating. Derek is stammering. This is brutal. I sat in my home office reading these texts, my bourbon getting warm. The system was doing exactly what I'd designed it to do, protecting itself. When I'd restructured those patents 3 years earlier, I'd built in multiple fail-safes. The core licensing framework required periodic cryptographic authorization from the patent holder, that's Whitfield Autonomous Technologies. If the lead architect's employment was terminated without executing the transition protocol outlined in Section 9.4.3, all licensing tokens would expire within 72 hours, and the system would enter protected mode. No override, no workaround. The encryption was military grade, because that's the standard I'd built everything to. 10:15 a.m., complete disaster. All 4 demo drones grounded. Chevron team already leaving. DOE representative said something about due diligence concerns and walked out. 10:42 a.m., Derek locked himself in his office. Legal team in emergency session. Someone from ExxonMobil just asked our sales rep if we've been misrepresenting our technology capabilities. Oh my God. The demo failure was just the opening act. What Derek hadn't considered was that PathGuard wasn't sitting idle on servers somewhere. At that exact moment, it was actively managing autonomous drone operations for 23 companies across the country. Duke Energy's high-voltage transmission line inspections in the Carolinas. TransCanada's pipeline monitoring across Alberta. The Army Corps of Engineers levee inspection program along the Mississippi. 3 offshore oil platform inspection contracts in the Gulf of Mexico. When the licensing expired, those systems didn't crash. They did something worse. They grounded every drone and locked every operator console. Suddenly, field crews who'd been relying on autonomous inspections were staring at blank screens and calling headquarters asking what happened. Marcus's next text came at noon. Duke Energy just called. Their entire fall inspection schedule is frozen. They've got crews sitting in trucks across 3 states with no operational drones. They're threatening breach of contract. By 2 o'clock, it was a full-blown crisis. Orion support lines were overwhelmed. TransCanada had escalated to their CEO. The Army Corps of Engineers was talking about national infrastructure security concerns. Derek had brought in 2 outside law firms, and they were all telling him the same thing. The IP agreements were airtight. Diana called me that afternoon. Her voice was tight, controlled the way it gets when she's angry but holding it together. James, this is chaos. Derek's blaming the engineering team for system failures. He put Marcus and 2 other engineers on administrative leave pending investigation. He's telling clients it's a cybersecurity incident. Cybersecurity incident. That made my blood boil. He was covering his incompetence by accusing my people of sabotage. How's Marcus handling it? He's devastated. He keeps telling everyone he can't fix anything without authorization codes that only exist in your licensing infrastructure. Derek won't listen. He keeps insisting Orion owns everything and you're somehow illegally blocking their systems. Diana, I need a favor. Get me a complete list of all active client deployments. Every company, every drone fleet, every active contract. I need to know exactly who's being affected and how badly. She hesitated. James, I can't just share internal. You're not sharing it with a competitor. You're giving it to the patent holder who's trying to figure out how to minimize damage to innocent people. Duke Energy line workers didn't do anything wrong. TransCanada pipeline crews don't deserve to sit idle because Derek Calloway doesn't understand technology licensing. Silence. Then, I'll have it to you within 2 hours. The list hit harder than I expected. 23 companies. Combined, they were running over 600 autonomous drones through PathGuard's navigation system. Some of those operations were safety-critical high-voltage line inspections where a single missed defect could cause a wildfire. Pipeline monitoring where a leak detection delay could mean an environmental disaster. This wasn't just about money anymore. People could actually get hurt. That evening, my doorbell rang. Rachel answered and came back looking surprised. James, there's a young man at the door. Says he's Marcus from your old company. Marcus Rivera stood on my porch, looking like he'd been through a war. Wrinkled polo shirt, coffee stain on his jeans, dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. "Boss, we need to talk." I brought him into my study and poured him a bourbon. Kid needed it. "It's falling apart," he said, without sitting down. "TransCanada is pulling their contract. Duke Energy's lawyers sent a formal breach notice. And, Derek." He rubbed his eyes. Derek sent a company-wide email calling the system failure a technical anomaly and saying external consultants are being engaged to resolve it. External consultants. He's talking about you like you're some IT help desk, instead of the person who built every line of code in that platform. Marcus, I designed those fail-safes for a reason. Derek thought he could fire the pilot and keep the plane flying. But it's not just Derek getting hurt. Our entire team is being scapegoated. He accused Ben Torres of leaving back doors in the navigation code. Ben's been with us for 7 years. His wife just had a baby last month. He's terrified he's going to get fired and lose his health insurance. That hit me in the chest. Ben was one of my first hires at Orion. Quiet guy. Incredible attention to detail. The kind of engineer who catches the bug that would have crashed a drone into a power line. His kid was 3 weeks old. What's Derek saying about restoring access? He's convinced Orion owns everything and you're breaking the law. 3 different law firms have explained why he's wrong, but he won't hear it. He keeps saying, "We paid for this technology," like that changes the legal structure. I didn't sleep much that night. Kept thinking about Ben Torres and his newborn. About Marcus, who'd trusted me with his career. About the Duke Energy line workers sitting in trucks with no drones to fly. I'd built those fail-safes to protect myself, but collateral damage wasn't part of my plan. The next morning, my phone rang at 7. HR. Sandra Mitchell, same artificially cheerful voice I'd heard a dozen times in all-hands meetings. "James, how are you? Listen, there's been some internal discussion about your situation. We think we may have moved a bit hastily on the leadership transition." Sandra, skip the script. "You're calling because your clients are threatening lawsuits and your drones are grounded across the country." Pause. "Well, yes. There have been some operational complications. But we'd love to explore a consulting arrangement, perhaps a 60-day engagement to help stabilize systems while we bring new technical leadership on board." "How much?" "We're thinking 300,000 plus accelerated vesting on your remaining stock options." I actually smiled. 300,000 to fix a crisis that was costing clients millions per day. Not interested. "Okay, what about 500,000? We understand the urgency." "Sandra, you're not understanding the situation. Derek Calloway fired me publicly, in front of people I'd worked alongside for 11 years. He treated me like a broken copier he was sending back to the leasing company. And now you want me to fix his disaster for consulting fees?" The silence stretched long enough for me to hear her flipping through notes. "What would it take?" she finally asked. "It would take Derek Calloway publicly acknowledging that he made a mistake. It would take the board guaranteeing that every engineer on my team is protected from retaliation. It would take a formal apology to Marcus Rivera, Ben Torres, and every other engineer Derek accused of sabotage. And honestly, even then, I'm not sure I'd be interested. James, please be reasonable. Companies are losing." Then maybe Derek should have been reasonable before he decided to play power games with technology he's never bothered to understand. I hung up. 4 days after that call, I got an email that changed the trajectory of everything. Not from Orion. From someone I hadn't spoken to in 6 years. Catherine Park at Sentinel Aerospace. "James heard through the grapevine what happened. If you're free for lunch, I think we should have a conversation." Catherine had worked with me at Orion from 2014 to 2018, back when we were still building the foundational navigation algorithms. Brilliant aerospace engineer, Stanford PhD, MBA from MIT Sloan. She understood both the technology and the business better than anyone I'd ever met. Derek had pushed her out during one of his early reorganizations, claiming her department was redundant. Real reason? She'd told the board, in front of Derek, that his cost-cutting strategy would destroy the company's technological advantage. She was right. He didn't forgive her for it. Sentinel Aerospace was Orion's primary competitor in the autonomous drone inspection market. They'd been trying to build something comparable to PathGuard for 5 years with moderate success. Their systems worked fine in open terrain, but they couldn't match our precision in complex environments, dense infrastructure, offshore platforms, confined spaces. The gap was the predictive navigation engine, and they knew it. We met at a seafood restaurant in downtown Houston on Wednesday, exactly 10 days after Derek had fired me. Catherine looked sharp, confident posture, direct eye contact, The energy of someone who's thriving because the right people finally recognized her value. Derek Calloway is the dumbest smart person I've ever met, she said before I'd even opened my menu. But you built something at Orion that's genuinely world-class. Built. Past tense. She smiled and slid a tablet across the table. James, I'll be direct. We've been monitoring the situation. System failures, client defections, investor panic. Orion's stock is down 38%. TransCanada terminated. Duke Energy threatening litigation. The DOE contract is dead. On the screen was a detailed analysis of Orion's financial implosion. Client revenue projections cratering. Employee attrition accelerating as engineers jumped ship. 3 pending lawsuits from clients claiming breach of service agreements. Impressive intelligence work, I said. We do our homework. But here's what really matters. We know you hold the PathGuard patents through Whitfield Autonomous Technologies. We know the licensing structure, and we know that technology is worth significantly more than what Orion's balance sheet ever reflected. I took a sip of water. That's Orion's problem. James, Sentinel wants to acquire your complete patent portfolio, not license it. Full acquisition. We're talking about combining your navigation technology with our hardware platform and sensor arrays to build something neither company could create alone. She pulled up another screen side by side, technical comparisons of Sentinel's drone systems and PathGuard's software capabilities. They'd clearly done deep analysis. What kind of number are we discussing? $750 million for the full patent portfolio, plus a 5-year position as our chief technology officer at $2.8 million annually. Full authority over technical direction, R&D budget, and hiring. You'd be building the next generation of autonomous systems with the resources and respect you deserve. $750 million. For patents that Derek Calloway thought were just software on a server. For work he'd called legacy systems in a board meeting last year. This is a real offer? Board approved last Tuesday. We've been planning this approach since the day you were terminated. The system failures just accelerated our timeline by about 6 months. Catherine leaned forward. James, think about what you had at Orion. 11 years, fighting for budget, justifying your innovations to people who thought autonomous navigation was just a fancy GPS. At Sentinel, you'd be working with engineers who understand the physics, executives who respect the science, and a board that knows the difference between cost-cutting and value destruction. What's the timeline? Due diligence? 2 weeks. Patent transfer and integration planning, another 2. You could be our CTO by Thanksgiving, with a team of your choosing and a lab that would make your old Orion facility look like a garage. I thought about Marcus, Ben Torres, and his newborn daughter, Diana, and the rest of the team stuck in Derek's chaos. What about bringing my people over? Already anticipated. Marcus Rivera is at the top of our wish list. Diana Okafor, we'd love her running field operations. Ben Torres, absolutely. Anyone else you recommend? We're prepared to make competitive offers with signing bonuses to offset any non-compete concerns. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about building something better with people who deserved to work somewhere their talent was valued. I need a few days, of course. But James, don't wait too long. Orion's bleeding out, and other companies are going to start circling the patents. We want to be first and best, but we won't be the only ones calling. That night, Rachel and I sat on the back porch with bourbon and the kind of quiet that comes after a storm passes. She'd been watching me carry the weight of the past 2 weeks, the anger, the guilt about my team, the sleepless nights wondering if I'd done the right thing by building those fail-safes in the first place. What's your gut say? She asked. That Derek Calloway tried to throw away the most valuable thing his company ever built. And now, someone smarter gets to benefit from his arrogance. And the money? We'd been comfortable on my Orion salary. Good house in the suburbs, kids' college funds on track, reasonable retirement plan. But $750 million was a different universe. That was generational wealth. That was never worrying about healthcare, helping our kids buy homes, funding scholarships, living the rest of our lives on our terms. The money matters, but it's really about the work. Sentinel has the resources and the leadership to do this right. I'd be building instead of defending for the first time in years. Then, you already know the answer. I called my attorney the next morning. Tom Whitaker had been my lawyer since my Northrop Grumman days. He'd structured the patent agreements that were now the most important documents in my professional life. Tom, I need you to review an acquisition offer, $750 for the full Whitfield Autonomous Technologies portfolio. Long whistle. That's a major transaction, James. Buyer? Sentinel Aerospace. Full acquisition plus CTO position. We spent 4 hours dissecting every clause. Patent valuations, technology transfer protocols, tax implications, employment terms, non-compete carve-outs. Tom's team had built the original structure of Whitfield Autonomous Technologies specifically to accommodate a scenario like this. Everything's clean, Tom said finally. The patents are unencumbered, clearly held by your entity, and Orion's licensing expired exactly as designed when your employment was terminated without executing the transition protocol. They have zero legal standing to block this sale. And the CTO agreement? Strong terms. You'd have meaningful authority over technology, direction, and team building. Much better than being a VP subject to the whims of someone who thinks drone navigation is a PowerPoint topic. I called Catherine that afternoon. Let's do it. Outstanding. I'll get our legal team moving on due diligence immediately. One more thing. James. What's that? Welcome home. Friday evening, 12 days after my termination, my doorbell rang again. This time, it wasn't Marcus or Sandra from HR. Derek Calloway stood on my porch in khakis and a wrinkled Oxford shirt, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. James, can we talk? I almost closed the door, but some part of me, maybe the part that still remembered what it felt like to be young and in over your head, let him in. Rachel brought us coffee and disappeared upstairs. You can't do this, Derek said, his voice hoarse. You can't sell our technology to our biggest competitor. It's not your technology, Derek. It never was. That's kind of the whole point. You developed it at Orion. With our funding, our facilities, I pulled out the folder I'd been keeping on my desk for 2 weeks. Copies of every legal document Tom had structured 3 years earlier. Patent assignments, board resolutions, licensing agreements, all signed by Orion's executives, including his uncle Richard. Read section 9.4.3, I said. Your own board approved this arrangement during the budget restructuring in 2021. They just never explained it to you because nobody imagined you'd be foolish enough to terminate the patent holder without following the transition protocol. Derek's face went gray as he flipped through the pages. I watched the realization hit him in stages, confusion, then denial, then something close to grief. This will destroy the company. 300 people, James. People with families. That landed harder than I wanted it to. I thought about Ben Torres, his 3-week-old daughter, the engineers who'd sent me panicked texts, the field crews sitting in trucks across the country. Derek, you want to help those people? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to offer anyone who wants to leave a full severance package, 18 months salary, continued benefits, job placement assistance. And you're going to give me a list of every engineer who wants to stay in autonomous systems. Sentinel is hiring aggressively, and I'm building a team. You're gutting my company and calling it a rescue. No. You gutted your company the day you decided an MBA spreadsheet was more valuable than 27 years of engineering expertise. I'm just picking up the pieces. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he set down the papers, stood up, and walked toward the door. For what it's worth, he said, without turning around. The board told me you'd go quietly. They didn't know me very well. He left. I watched his Porsche pull out of the driveway, taillights disappearing down the street. The signing was the following Tuesday, 14 days exactly from the morning Derek had fired me. Sentinel Aerospace's headquarters in Houston's energy corridor was everything. Orion pretended to be glass and steel, sure, but with actual engineers visible through every window, actual prototypes in the lobby, actual innovation happening on every floor. Catherine met me in the executive conference room, ready to build something extraordinary. The contract was 61 pages, but it came down to 2 things. Whitfield Autonomous Technologies was selling its complete patent portfolio to Sentinel Aerospace for $750 million, and I was signing on as Chief Technology Officer with a 5-year commitment, full authority over technical direction, and a compensation package worth $2.8 million annually. I signed my name 11 times. Each signature felt like closing a door I'd been trying to walk through for years. Welcome aboard, James, Catherine said. First order of business? Call Marcus Rivera. Tell him he starts Monday. The news broke 3 hours later. Orion Defense Systems loses core drone technology in $750M Sentinel deal. Orion's stock dropped 47% before trading was halted. By market close, they'd lost $1.2 billion in valuation. Without Pathguard, Orion was just another defense contractor with aging hardware and no software advantage. Investors realized they'd been valuing a company based on technology the CEO had never actually controlled. Derek Calloway resigned the following morning. The board released a statement about strategic repositioning, but industry insiders knew the truth. The man who'd fired me for being an obstacle had just proven exactly how foundational the right expertise really is. Marcus called me that night, and for the first time in 2 weeks, he sounded like himself again. "Boss, is it real? Did you actually pull this off?" "It's real. And stop calling me boss. I'm your CTO now. Technically, that makes me your boss's boss." He laughed. First time I'd heard him laugh since before the termination. 3 weeks later, Marcus and 9 other engineers from my old team started at Sentinel. Diana Okafor came on as VP of Field Operations. Ben Torres accepted a senior engineering role with a 20% raise and premium health insurance that covered his daughter from day one. Even my brother Paul ended up consulting for us on defense integration projects, bringing his 30 years of military intelligence experience to our autonomous systems security architecture. The transition was smoother than anyone predicted. Our new Pathguard 2 platform launched 4 months ahead of schedule. First quarter revenue hit $120 million. Mostly from clients who'd been burned by Orion's instability and were desperate for a reliable autonomous inspection partner. The DOE contract that Derek had botched, Sentinel won it. $230 million over 5 years. Largest autonomous drone services contract in federal history. By year 2, we were running autonomous inspections for over half the major utility and energy companies in North America. The technology Derek had dismissed as mature and replaceable became the foundation for the next generation of autonomous infrastructure management. Orion Defense Systems filed for bankruptcy 14 months after I left. Sold their remaining assets, mostly office furniture and a testing facility to pay creditors. The 300 employees Derek had worried about, most of them found better positions. The good engineers landed at Sentinel, at competitors, at startups building on the autonomous revolution we'd helped create. Turns out talented people don't stay unemployed long when an entire industry is growing. Derek Calloway, last I heard, he was doing management consulting in Phoenix, probably advising other companies on operational efficiency while carefully leaving out the part where he destroyed a billion-dollar company because he couldn't tell the difference between cutting costs and cutting capabilities. People ask me if I feel guilty about how it played out. Honestly, no. Derek thought he could replace 27 years of hands-on engineering with budget spreadsheets and MBA jargon. He thought publicly firing me would signal bold, decisive leadership to his board. Instead, it revealed what everyone on my team already knew: he was managing something he'd never taken the time to understand. The word I said in that conference room, appreciated, wasn't sarcasm. It wasn't bitterness. It was genuine. Because in that moment, watching Derek's smug face as he read my termination notice like a weather report, I realized he was giving me exactly what I needed. Freedom from fighting people who didn't value what I'd built. Freedom to take my work somewhere it would be respected. Freedom to build the team and the technology I'd always envisioned, without someone who couldn't tell a LiDAR sensor from a laser pointer standing in my way. When young engineers ask me for career advice, I tell them 3 things. First, your expertise isn't just what you know, it's how you protect what you create. Second, always read the contracts, especially the ones other people skip. And third, never let someone who doesn't understand your work decide what it's worth. Because the day will come when they try to replace you with something cheaper. And if you've been smart, if you've planned ahead, that's the day you discover your real value was always more than they were paying for. In the defense industry, we talk about redundancy a lot. Backup systems, fail-safe protocols, contingency plans. Derek Calloway thought I was the redundancy. Turns out I was the primary system, and he just disconnected it. That lesson cost him his job, his company, and $750 million. But me? I'm 55 now, standing in a lab at Sentinel watching Marcus Rivera, who's now our VP of Navigation Systems, test the latest generation of Pathguard. Rachel and I bought some land in the hill country outside Austin where I can sit on the porch and think between board meetings. We're set for life, but the money was never really the point. The point is this.
They say just forget. Move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind. But the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close, like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. If I never met you, maybe I would know just how to heal. But now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. I'm freezing, I'm bleeding, slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile, every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here, maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay.